The Jektari swarm emerged from hyperspace like a plague of locusts descending on the system. Thousands of bioships poured through dimensional rifts while their hive-mind intelligence analyzed the tactical situation. Two primitive species had been fighting over territory that rightfully belonged to the swarm, and now both would be consumed. "Captain, we have massive contacts appearing throughout the system," reported the tactical officer as sensors detected the new threat. Estimated count exceeds 5,000 vessels of unknown configuration. Captain Lee stared at the tactical display in horror as wave after wave of alien ships materialized around both human and Velkin positions. The new arrivals moved with perfect coordination, suggesting a single controlling intelligence behind their actions. Admiral Thekvor received similar reports from his fleet and immediately understood the danger. All ships prepare for immediate combat. Unknown hostiles are moving to attack positions. Sir, what about the human vessel? They face the same threat we do. Signal them on the emergency frequency and request immediate ceasefire. The message reached. The Titans reach just as the first Jektari bioships opened fire on both fleets simultaneously. The organic vessels looked like massive insects with chitinous hulls and weapon systems that fired streams of acid and bioplasma, all hands battle stations, Lee announced as his ship came under attack from creatures that seemed to have crawled out of nightmares. "This is not a drill. All civilian personnel to emergency shelters immediately." Sub-Commander Velnara was still aboard the human ship when the attack began, and she immediately contacted her flagship. "Admiral requests permission to coordinate defense with human forces. The enemy is attacking both our fleets. Permission granted. Do whatever is necessary to defeat this threat." The battle became a three-way nightmare as Jektari bioships swarmed around both human and Velkin positions, while the two former enemies tried to coordinate their defense. The organic vessels were individually weak, but they attacked in coordinated waves that overwhelmed conventional tactics. "Their ships regenerate damage faster than we can inflict it," reported Weapons Chief. As mining lasers cut through bioship hulls only to watch the wounds seal themselves within minutes. "We need a different approach." Chief Engineer Park worked frantically with Velkin technicians who had remained aboard during the crisis to combine human and alien technologies. "If we can integrate their shield generators with our power systems, we might be able to create a defensive barrier strong enough to protect both fleets." The integration required desperate improvisation as human engineers worked alongside alien technicians to merge incompatible technologies. Language barriers were overcome through shared technical knowledge and the universal urgency of survival. Dr. Kim analyzed captured bioship material and made a crucial discovery about Jektari biology. "Captain, their organic systems are vulnerable to specific harmonic frequencies. Our mining resonators might be able to disrupt their regenerative capabilities. How do we implement that?" "We need to modify the ship's main resonance array to generate a system-wide harmonic pulse. But it will require precise coordination with Velkin shield harmonics to amplify the effect." Fighter pilot Han Minji led combined human and Velkin squadrons in desperate holding actions against Jektari swarm attacks. The enemy's numerical advantage seemed overwhelming, but the smaller ships fought with coordination and determination. "All squadrons, this is Minji. Use formation Delta 7 and target their coordination nodes. If we can disrupt their hive-mind connection, they might lose tactical coherence." The combined squadrons dove into the swarm using tactics developed by both species to exploit weaknesses in enemy formations. Human pilots used their experience in asteroid fields while Velkin fighters contributed superior weapons and shielding technology. Admiral Thekvor made a decision that violated centuries of Velkin military doctrine. He ordered his flagship to dock with the Titan's reach so that command crews could coordinate directly rather than trying to work through translation systems. "Sir, this is unprecedented," protested his tactical officer. "Velkin command ships do not dock with alien vessels." "These are unprecedented circumstances," Thekvor replied as his ship approached the human vessel's docking bay. "Honor requires that we fight alongside those who show courage in battle." The docking created a temporary command center where human and Velkin officers worked together to coordinate the defense of both fleets. Captain Lee and Admiral Thekvor found themselves fighting side by side against an enemy that threatened both their species. "Your people fight with great honor." Thekvor told Lee through the translation system as they watched combined forces holding off another Jektari assault wave. "Your warriors show courage that inspires our crews," Lee replied. "Together, we are stronger than either force alone." The breakthrough came when Dr. Kim's harmonic frequency weapon was successfully integrated with Velkin shield technology. Engineer Park and his alien counterparts created a resonance array that could project disrupting frequencies across the entire battle zone. "All ships, this is Titan's Reach actual." Lee broadcast to both fleets. "Prepare for harmonic pulse in 30 seconds. All vessels synchronize shield frequencies to Velkin Standard 77 Alpha." The combined fleets aligned their systems as the massive resonance array charged to full power. When the pulse was released, it swept across the battle zone like an invisible wave that caused Jektari bioships to convulse and lose their regenerative abilities. "Direct hit on enemy formations," reported the tactical officer as Jektari vessels began to show permanent damage from weapons fire. Their healing capabilities appear to be disrupted. The tide of battle turned as human mining lasers and Velkin plasma cannons found their targets no longer able to repair battle damage. Jektari coordination broke down as their hive mind connection was disrupted by the harmonic interference. Fighter pilot Han Minji led the final assault on the Jektari command ships with combined squadrons that fought as a unified force. Her mining shuttle had been heavily modified with Velkin weapons and shielding that gave it capabilities neither species could achieve alone. All squadrons target the large bioships at coordinates 77 Mark 4. Those appear to be their command nodes. The combined assault destroyed the Jektari command structure and caused the remaining bioships to flee the system in confusion. The threat that had seemed overwhelming was defeated through cooperation between former enemies who had learned to respect each other. In the aftermath of victory, Admiral Thekvor formally requested a meeting with Captain Lee to discuss permanent relations between their species. The battle had proven that humans and Velkins could work together effectively when facing common threats. "Captain Lee, your people have shown honor and courage that demands recognition," Thekvor announced during the formal ceremony. "The Velkin hegemony extends an offer of alliance to humanity." "We accept your offer, Admiral," Lee replied. "Our species have much to learn from each other, and the galaxy is dangerous for those who stand alone." Sub-Commander Velnara volunteered to serve as the first Velkin cultural liaison aboard the Titan's Reach, while human volunteers prepared to visit Velkin space stations to begin formal diplomatic relations. The exchange would mark the beginning of the first interstellar alliance in galactic history. Dr. Kim established communication protocols that would allow regular contact between human and Velkin vessels, while Professor Song worked on creating comprehensive translation systems. The language barriers that had nearly caused a war would become bridges to greater understanding. Chief Engineer Park collaborated with Velkin technicians to develop hybrid technologies that combined the best capabilities of both species. Human industrial capacity merged with Velkin military engineering to create systems neither civilization could have built alone. The Titan's Reach prepared to continue its journey through space, but now it carried more than human families and dreams. Velkin cultural exchange students lived alongside human civilians, while joint research teams worked on projects that would benefit both species. Captain Lee stood on his bridge looking out at stars that no longer seemed empty and hostile. Humanity's first contact had not come through peaceful diplomacy, but through the crucible of battle where true character was revealed. They had found not just alien intelligence, but worthy allies who shared their values of courage and honor. Navigator set course for the Velkin research station at Epsilon Eridani, Lee ordered as the massive ship prepared for its next destination. "It is time to see what we can build together." The Titan's Reach began moving toward its new destination, escorted by Velkin warships that had become protectors rather than threats. In the cargo bays, human and Velkin children played together while their parents worked on technologies that would reshape galactic civilization. Fighter pilot Han Minji led joint training exercises, where human and Velkin pilots learned from each other's techniques and experiences. The mining shuttles and alien fighters that had once been enemies now flew in formation as symbols of cooperation between the stars. The journey that had begun as a search for resources had become something far more valuable. Humanity had found its place in a larger universe, and proven that even the vast emptiness of space could not diminish the power of beings who chose to stand together against the darkness. Admiral Taman stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. He had seen many star systems in his 40 years of service with the Galactic Council fleet, but this one felt different. The Kepler 442b system stretched out before them with its bright yellow star and 7 planets spinning in perfect order. 3 of those planets held life, and one of them had people who were just learning to send radio signals into space. Captain Sora walked up to him with a datapad in her hands. Her face looked worried, and Taman could see why. The numbers on the screen made no sense at all. "Admiral, the long-range sensors are picking up something very strange," she said in a quiet voice. "There is a massive energy reading coming toward us from the edge of the system." Taman took the datapad and looked at the numbers. His eyes went wide as he read them twice to make sure they were real. The energy signature was bigger than anything he had ever seen before. It was like someone had taken their biggest battleship and made it 10 times more powerful. "Are you sure these readings are correct?" he asked. "I had the sensor team check them 5 times, Sora replied. "Whatever is coming our way has more power than our entire fleet combined." The bridge fell silent, except for the soft hum of the ship. Systems. Commander Wu Jin looked up from his communication station with fear in his eyes. "Admiral, I am getting reports from all our ships. Every vessel in the fleet is detecting the same energy signature. The science ships say they have never seen anything like it." Taman had been part of first contact missions before. He had met dozens of new species and helped them join the galactic community. Some were peaceful traders who wanted to share knowledge. Others were young civilizations that needed guidance. A few were aggressive, but even those could be handled with patience and the right approach. But this felt different. This felt dangerous. "How far away is this contact?" Taman asked, as he handed the datapad back to Sora. "About 6 hours at current speed," she answered. "But Admiral, there is something else. The energy signature is not like any known ship design. Our computers cannot identify what type of propulsion system they are using." Taman walked to the center of the bridge and looked at each of his officers. These were good people who had served with him for years. They had faced pirates and natural disasters together. They had helped build peace between species that had been fighting for centuries. But he could see the fear in their faces now, and he felt it too. "Send a message to all ships in the fleet," he ordered. "Battle stations, but do not charge weapons. We are here on a peaceful mission and we will act like it. But I want everyone ready just in case." The next few hours passed slowly. Reports came in from the scout ships that were watching the approaching vessel. Each report made the situation more confusing. The energy readings kept getting stronger, but there was still only one ship. The size estimates kept changing too. First they said it was 3 kilometers long, then 5, then 8. The final report made Taman sit down in his command chair with shock. "Admiral," Wu Jin said with a shaking voice, "the scout ship reports that the approaching vessel is 15 kilometers in length. 15 kilometers. Taman had seen the biggest ships in the galaxy. The ancient Vegan supercarriers were only 4 kilometers long. The massive trade ships that carried goods between star systems were maybe 6 kilometers. But 15 kilometers was beyond anything that should be possible. "That cannot be right," Sora said as she checked her own instruments. "A ship that big would need the power output of a small star just to move." "Maybe that is exactly what they have," Wu Jin replied. Quietly, Taman stood up and walked to the viewing screen. He could not see anything yet, but he knew it was coming. Whatever these beings were, they had technology that made the rest of the galaxy look like children playing with toys. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council," he ordered. "They need to know about this." The communication took 30 minutes to reach the council chambers, and another 30 for a reply to come back. When it did, the message was short and clear. "Proceed with first contact protocols. Do not engage unless attacked. Report everything." As the 6th hour approached, every eye on the bridge was focused on the viewing screen. The ship sensors were going crazy with readings that made no sense, energy levels that should have torn space apart, gravitational distortions that bent light around them. And then they saw it. The human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and every sensor in the fleet screamed warnings. Alarms went off on every bridge as the massive vessel appeared before them like a mountain floating in space. It was dark gray with sharp angles and weapons that looked like they could crack a planet in half. Energy crackled around its hull in patterns that hurt to look at. "By the ancient stars," Sora whispered as she stared at the screen. The ship was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It moved with grace despite its size, but every line of its design spoke of war. Huge guns pointed in all directions, armor plating covered every surface, and the energy readings were still climbing as more and more systems came online. "All ships, report battle ready," Wu Jin said, but his voice was barely a whisper. "They are requesting permission to charge weapons." Taemin could not speak for a moment. In all his years of service, he had never felt such pure fear. This was not just a ship. This was a weapon designed to end civilizations. The beings who built this thing had looked at the stars and decided they needed something that could destroy anything they might find. "Negative on weapons charging," he finally managed to say. "We stick to the protocols." The human ship slowly turned toward their fleet, and Taemin felt his heart stop. The movement was smooth and controlled, but it brought those massive guns to bear on his ships. If the humans decided to fire, there would be nothing left but wreckage and radiation. "Admiral," Sora said in a voice full of wonder and terror. I'm reading 50,000 life signs aboard that ship." 50,000. That was not a crew. That was an army. These humans had brought an entire army in a ship that could destroy solar systems. What kind of beings needed that much firepower just to say hello? "Incoming transmission," Wu Jin announced. "They are using our standard first contact frequencies." "Put it on screen," Taemin ordered. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge take a step back. The human looked similar to several species they knew, but there was something different about the eyes. They were sharp and alert like a predator that never stopped hunting. The human wore a dark uniform with symbols that meant nothing to them. "Greetings," the human said in perfect galactic standard language. "I am Captain Hyunwoo of the United Earth Ship Sovereign. We come in peace seeking friendship and knowledge with all sentient beings. We hope to begin a long and beneficial relationship between our peoples." The words were exactly what first contact protocols called for. Peaceful, respectful, diplomatic. But Taemin could not stop looking at the massive weapons visible through the windows behind the human captain. He could not forget the energy readings that were still making their sensors scream, and he could not shake the feeling that they were looking at something that should not exist. "This is Admiral Taemin of the Galactic Council Exploration Fleet," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "We welcome you to this system and look forward to learning about your people." As the communication ended, Taemin sank into his command chair and tried to process what had just happened. First contact was supposed to be a celebration, a moment when two civilizations met and shared the wonder of the universe together. But all he felt was fear and the terrible certainty that everything was about to change. Captain Hyunwoo stood in his ready room looking out at the alien fleet through the thick armor glass window. The ships were small and sleek, with curved lines that spoke of peaceful exploration rather than war. He counted 20 vessels spread out in a defensive formation that made him smile. These beings were being careful, which was smart when meeting strangers for the first time. "Captain," came a voice from behind him. Lieutenant Commander Ji Hai entered the room carrying a data pad filled with behavioral analysis reports. "I have finished studying their fleet movements and communication patterns. They are definitely afraid of us." Hyunwoo turned from the window and looked at his xenopsychologist with surprise. "Afraid? Why would they be afraid? We sent all the right peaceful signals and followed every first contact protocol in the book." Ji Hai set the data pad on his desk and pulled up a tactical display. "Look at their formation, sir. They are in a classic defensive pattern with their smallest ships in front and their largest vessels protecting the rear. Their weapon systems are powered but not charged, which means they want to be ready to fight, but do not want to start one. Maybe they are just being careful," Hyunwoo said as he sat down behind his desk. "I would do the same thing if a strange ship appeared in my space." "Sir, with respect, I think there is more to it than that," Ji Hai replied. "I have been monitoring their internal communications, and the emotional stress indicators are off the Y charts. These beings are not just being careful, they are terrified." Hyunwoo frowned as he looked at the data. The numbers showed fear levels that went beyond normal caution. It was the kind of fear that came from facing something that could destroy you completely. That makes no sense. The Sovereign is a diplomatic vessel. Everything about our design and approach should signal peaceful intentions. That is what I thought too, Jihai said quietly, until I started looking at our ship from their perspective. She touched a control on the data pad, and a three-dimensional image of the Sovereign appeared above the desk. The ship looked exactly as Hyunwoo remembered from the construction yards. 15 kilometers of advanced human engineering designed to carry diplomats and scientists safely across the galaxy. The thick armor was there to protect the civilians aboard from radiation and micro-meteors. The massive weapons were purely defensive, meant to keep pirates and hostile forces away from the peace mission. I do not see the problem, Hyunwoo said. This is exactly what a diplomatic vessel should look like. Sir, this is what a diplomatic vessel should look like to humans, Jihai corrected. But to aliens who have never seen our technology, it looks like something else entirely. She manipulated the image to show energy readings and power signatures. The numbers made Hyunwoo whistle softly. He had known the Sovereign was powerful, but seeing it displayed this way was impressive even to him. The main reactor put out more energy than most stars. The defensive shields could probably stop anything short of a direct hit from a planet-killer weapon, and the guns could reduce an asteroid to dust in seconds. These beings have been traveling space for thousands of years, Jihai continued. They have seen every type of ship design imaginable, cargo haulers, and exploration vessels, and even warships. But they have never seen anything like us. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to the ready room. Come in, Hyunwoo called, and Dr. Minho entered, carrying an armful of cultural exchange materials. Captain, I have prepared gifts for our new friends, Minho announced with enthusiasm. Music recordings from Earth, examples of our art and literature, and technical specifications for some of our simpler technologies. This is going to be such an exciting opportunity for both our civilizations. Hyunwoo smiled at the older man. Enthusiasm. Dr. Minho had been looking forward to this mission for months, and his excitement was infectious. That sounds perfect, Doctor. What kind of technical specifications are you planning to share? Oh, just basic things to start with, Minho replied as he set his materials on a side table. Mining equipment designs, agricultural techniques, maybe some of our construction methods. Nothing too advanced, of course. We want to be helpful but not overwhelming. Jihai and Hyunwoo exchanged glances. What humans considered basic technology might be anything but basic to these aliens. Dr. Jihai said carefully, "What exactly do you mean by mining equipment?" Standard asteroid processing systems, Minho answered with a shrug. The kind we use to break down small asteroids for raw materials. Very routine stuff, really. Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. Human asteroid processing systems used focused antimatter beams to disintegrate rock at the molecular level. What they called routine mining equipment could probably level a city if used as a weapon. And the agricultural techniques, he asked? Terraforming protocols mostly? Minho said. How to reshape planetary atmospheres and adjust soil composition for optimal crop growth. We have turned dozens of dead worlds into garden planets using these methods. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans had developed the ability to remake entire worlds to suit their needs. They could change the very air that billions of beings breathed and reshape continents like clay in the hands of a sculptor. To humans, it was farming. To aliens, it might look like the power of gods. Doctor, perhaps we should be more careful about what we share initially, Hyunwoo suggested. We want to make sure our new friends are comfortable with us before we start discussing our more advanced capabilities. Minho looked confused. More advanced? Captain, these are our most basic technologies. The really impressive stuff is what we left back in the Sol system. What do you mean? Jihai asked, though Hyunwoo suspected she already knew the answer. Well, the Sovereign is just a converted colony ship, Minho explained. We took a civilian transport and added some defensive systems to make it suitable for first contact. Our actual military vessels are much more capable, and the industrial ships that harvest solar energy directly from stars are truly massive. Some of them are over 50 kilometers long. Hyunwoo closed his eyes and tried to imagine how that information would sound to the aliens waiting outside. Humans had sent what they considered a small converted civilian ship, and it was already the most powerful vessel these beings had ever encountered. The actual human military fleet would probably look like an unstoppable force of destruction, capable of conquering the galaxy, Captain Jihai said quietly. I really think we need to be very careful about how we present ourselves. These aliens have been peaceful for millennia. They solve problems through discussion and compromise, but humans solve problems differently. What do you mean? Minho asked. Think about our history, Doctor, Jihai replied. How did humans develop faster than light travel? Minho considered the question. Well, we needed to get off Earth before the environmental collapse became irreversible. And there were the resource wars, of course. Plus the threat of asteroid impacts. I suppose you could say we developed the technology out of necessity. Exactly, Jihai said. Humans developed advanced technology because they had to, or they would die. These aliens developed technology because they wanted to explore and learn. We are survivors. They are scholars. Hyunwoo was beginning to understand the problem. Humans had spent their entire evolutionary history facing threats that would destroy them if they did not find solutions quickly. War, disease, natural disasters, resource scarcity. Every challenge had made them stronger and more adaptable, but it had also made them very good at building things that could protect them from any threat. So when they look at our ship, he said, slowly, they do not see a peaceful diplomatic vessel. They see a weapon built by a species that has spent millions of years learning how to destroy anything that threatens them. And they are not wrong, Jihai added. The Sovereign could destroy their entire fleet in minutes if we chose to. They know it and we know it. The question is what we do with that knowledge. A communication alert sounded, and Woo Jin's voice came through the speaker. Captain, the aliens are requesting a cultural exchange meeting. They want to meet face-to-face in neutral space between our fleets. Hyunwoo looked at Jihai and Minho. The doctor was still excited about sharing human culture with new friends. But Jihai looked worried about what might happen when these peaceful aliens learned more about the species that had just arrived in their space. Tell them we accept, Hyunwoo decided, and prepare a shuttle for departure. But doctor, he added, turning to Minho, let me review those cultural materials before you share them. I want to make sure we present the right image of humanity. As the three officers left the ready room to prepare for the meeting, Hyunwoo wondered if there was any way to make first contact work when one side was terrified of the other. Humans meant no harm, but they carried the power to destroy civilizations in their hands like tools. These aliens wanted peace, but they had never encountered a species that defined peace as being strong enough to defeat any enemy. The next few hours would determine whether this first contact became the beginning of a beautiful friendship or the start of a very short war. The cultural exchange meeting took place aboard a neutral station that had been hastily constructed in the space between the two fleets. Dr. Minho sat across from three alien representatives in a conference room that felt too small for the weight of history being made. Admiral Taemin watched from the alien side while Captain Hyunwoo observed from the human delegation. Both commanders had decided to let their experts handle the initial exchanges while they studied each other. This is fascinating, said the lead alien scientist, whose name translated roughly to Bright Song. Your species developed faster than light travel in less than 200 years after discovering electricity. Most civilizations take at least 1,000 years to make that journey. Dr. Minho smiled and nodded. Humans have always been good at solving problems quickly when we need to. We had some pressing issues that required immediate solutions. What kind of pressing issues? Asked another alien who served as their cultural specialist. Her name was Gentle Rain, and she seemed genuinely curious about human development. Oh, the usual things, Minho replied casually. Environmental collapse on our homeworld, resource depletion, asteroid impact threats, and of course the Third World War made it clear we needed to spread out beyond Earth before something destroyed our entire civilization. The silence that followed was deafening. Brightsong blinked several times as if he had misheard something important. Did you say Third World War? He asked quietly. Yes, though. Technically, we are calling it the resource conflict now, since it was more about access to rare earth minerals than traditional territorial disputes, Minho explained. It only lasted 18 months, but the casualty numbers were quite high. Nearly 2 billion people died before we developed the Antarctic Peace Accords. Gentle Rain made a soft sound that might have been distress. In her species, 2 billion was larger than the total population of most inhabited worlds. The idea that humans had killed that many of their own people in 18 months was beyond her ability to process. But surely that was your worst conflict, Brightsong said hopefully. Your species must have learned from such a terrible experience. Actually, it was one of our smaller wars, Minho replied. The Second World War killed about 4 billion people over 6 years, and the First World War was only about 1 billion. Casualties, but that was mostly due to less efficient weapons technology at the time. Admiral Taemin leaned forward in his chair, unable to stay silent. Dr. Minho, are you saying that your species regularly fights wars that kill billions of people? Oh no, not regularly, Minho said with a laugh. Those were global conflicts. Most of our wars are much smaller. Regional disputes over territory or resources that might only kill a few hundred million people. We have learned to be much more surgical in our approach to conflict resolution. Captain Hyun-woo closed his eyes and tried not to imagine how that sounded to beings who had solved their last military conflict through a poetry contest. Humans had a very different definition of surgical than the rest of the galaxy, apparently. Tell me about your ship construction methods, Brightsong said, changing the subject to something he hoped would be less disturbing. The energy efficiency of your vessel is remarkable. Engineer Dong-hyun stepped forward with enthusiasm. Thank you. The Sovereign uses a fairly standard antimatter reactor design, though we had to scale it down significantly for this mission. Our industrial ships back home use much larger reactors, of course. Antimatter, Gentle Rain whispered. You have learned to harness antimatter for propulsion? For everything, really, Dong-hyun replied. Propulsion, power generation, waste disposal, mining operations. Once you figure out how to contain it safely, antimatter becomes incredibly useful. Our biggest challenge was actually reducing the power output enough to fit in a ship this small. Small, Admiral Taemin repeated faintly. Well, yes, sir. 15 kilometers is tiny compared to our solar collection vessels. Those run about 50 kilometers in length and harvest energy directly from stellar cores. Of course, they need that much space to house the containment systems for the raw stellar matter. Science Officer Yu Jin joined the conversation with obvious excitement. The really interesting development is our new planet cracking technology. We can split apart dead worlds to access the heavy elements in their cores. Very efficient for large-scale construction projects. The aliens stared at her in complete silence. Planet cracking was theoretical science to them, something that might be possible with technology they could barely imagine, but humans spoke about it like discussing a new type of hammer. You can destroy planets, Brightsong asked, in a voice that barely qualified as a whisper. Only uninhabited ones, Yujin clarified, quickly. We have very strict protocols about that. No planet with any form of life can be processed unless the ecosystem has been completely evacuated and relocated first. We are not monsters. Of course not. Admiral Taemin agreed, though he was not sure he believed it anymore. Dr. Minho pulled out a datapad and began showing images of human achievements. Perhaps you would like to see some examples of our terraforming work. This planet used to be a barren rock with no atmosphere. We added breathable air, introduced water systems, and established complete ecosystems in just 47 years. The before and after images showed a transformation that looked like magic to the aliens. A dead world had become a garden paradise with flowing rivers and vast forests. Cities sparkled like jewels across continents that had been sculpted into perfect shapes. How many people live there now? Gentle Rain asked. About 8 billion currently, though we designed the infrastructure to support up to 12 billion if needed, Minho replied proudly. 8 billion people on one planet. The aliens tried to comprehend a population density that was larger than some entire star systems. Humans did not just terraform worlds, they filled them with numbers of people that boggled the mind. What about your military vessels? Admiral Taemin asked, even though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. You mentioned that this ship was converted from civilian use. Captain Hyunwoo decided it was time to speak. The Sovereign is indeed a converted colony transport. We added defensive systems and upgraded the reactor, but the basic hull design is civilian. Our actual military ships are built from the ground up for combat operations. And how do they compare to this vessel? Taemin asked. The newest dreadnought. Class ships are about 25 kilometers long with full offensive capabilities, Hyunwoo replied. But we only built 12 of them. Most of our fleet consists of smaller vessels in the 10 to 15 kilometer range. How many ships in your fleet? Active military vessels number about 40,000, Hyunwoo said, plus another 60,000 in the reserve fleets and maybe 20,000 more in various support roles. 120,000 warships. Admiral Taemin felt his world spinning as he tried to process that number. The entire Galactic Council combined had maybe 3,000 military vessels, and most of those were small patrol ships. Humans had built an armada that could conquer the known galaxy, and they called it a defense force. But surely you do not need such a large military, Brightsong protested. Your species controls only one star system. Actually, we control 40. 3 systems now, Yujin corrected, though we only have major colonies in about half of them. The others are used for resource extraction and industrial operations. 43 systems in 200 years, Gentle Rain said in amazement. Most species take millennia to spread beyond their home worlds. We had some motivation to expand quickly, Dr. Minho explained. Earth was becoming uninhabitable due to environmental damage, and we needed new homes for our people. Plus, there were concerns about putting all our eggs in one basket, so to speak. If something happened to Earth, we wanted to make sure humanity would survive. Engineer Dong Yun nodded enthusiastically. That is why we developed such robust ship designs. Every colony ship had to be able to defend itself against any possible threat. Pirates, hostile aliens, rogue asteroids, stellar anomalies. Our people needed to know they would be safe no matter what they encountered. So you built ships that could survive anything, Admiral Taemin said slowly. Exactly, Dong Hyun agreed. The Sovereign could probably survive a direct hit from a supernova if the shields were properly configured. We learned early on that space is dangerous and the only way to be safe is to be prepared for the worst possible scenarios. The cultural exchange continued for several more hours, but the pattern was clear. Every aspect of human civilization was built around the assumption that terrible things could happen at any moment, and preparation was the only defense. Their ships were designed to fight against impossible odds. Their colonies were planned to survive any disaster. Their technology was developed to solve problems that would destroy other species. As the meeting finally ended, Admiral Taemin found himself looking at Captain Hyunwoo with new understanding. These humans were not conquerors or destroyers. They were survivors who had faced extinction so many times that overwhelming force seemed normal to them. They carried the power of gods in their hands because anything less had proven insufficient to keep them alive. But that knowledge did not make them any less dangerous. If anything, it made them more frightening because their power came from necessity rather than choice. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened just 18 hours after Admiral Taemin sent his initial report about the humans. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Great Chamber on Central Station, with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright terror. The holographic display in the center of the room showed images of the human vessel, alongside comparative data, that made even the most experienced diplomats uncomfortable. Council Speaker Dawnwing called the session to order with her melodic voice carrying across the chamber. We are here to discuss the arrival of a new species that calls itself human. Admiral Taemin will present his findings and we will determine our response as a unified galactic community. Admiral Taemin activated his presentation and the display filled with tactical data from his encounter. The human vessel designated Sovereign measures 15 kilometers in length and carries an energy signature that exceeds our most optimistic projections for theoretical superweapons. Initial scans suggest the ship could destroy our entire exploration fleet without sustaining significant damage. A representative from the Crystalline Collective raised one of his many arms. Surely you are exaggerating, Admiral. No single vessel could possess such capabilities. I assure you I am not, Taemin replied grimly. The humans demonstrated complete mastery of antimatter technology. They use it for routine operations that we consider purely theoretical. Their mining equipment could level continents. Their construction tools manipulate matter at the atomic level. And this vessel is what they consider a small diplomatic ship. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber as representatives absorbed this information. The humans had achieved in 2 centuries what most civilizations considered impossible. After millennia of development, What are their intentions? Asked the representative from the Peaceful Gardens Coalition. Do they come as conquerors? That is the most disturbing aspect of this situation, Taemin admitted. They appear to be genuinely peaceful. Their captain spoke of friendship and cultural exchange. Their diplomats shared gifts and showed enthusiasm for learning about our civilizations. But their definition of peaceful coexistence includes the ability to destroy anyone who might threaten them. Captain Sora stepped forward to add her analysis. During the cultural exchange, we learned that humans have fought multiple global wars that killed billions of their own people. They have terraformed dozens of worlds and built colonies in 43 star systems. They operate mining vessels that harvest energy directly from stellar cores and have developed technology capable of cracking planets for raw materials. The chamber fell silent as representatives tried to comprehend a species that wielded such power casually. The Vegan Republic delegate spoke first. Have they made any demands or territorial claims? None whatsoever, Taemin replied. They seem genuinely interested in peaceful relations and cultural exchange. Dr. Minho, their chief diplomat, actually apologized for any inconvenience their arrival might have caused. Then what exactly is the problem? Asked the delegate from the Trading Guild. Commander Wu Jin activated a new display showing human population data. The problem is scale. Humans have colonized 43 star systems in 200 years. Their average colony world supports 8 to 12 billion inhabitants. Their military fleet consists of over 100,000 vessels, including ships that make the sovereign look small. The mathematical implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Humans had built an interstellar civilization larger than the entire Galactic Council in a fraction of the time it had taken any other species to leave their home systems. How is such rapid expansion possible? Wondered the representative from the ancient archive species. Necessity, Taemin answered. Humans developed their technology under constant threat of extinction. Environmental collapse, resource depletion, natural disasters, and wars that killed billions of people. Every advancement was driven by the need to survive impossible circumstances. So they are refugees, suggested the delegate from the compassionate shepherds. Perhaps we should offer them aid and guidance. They are not refugees, Captain Sora corrected. They are apex predators who have learned to work together. Their entire civilization is built around the assumption that terrible things will happen, and overwhelming force is the only reliable defense. The debate that followed revealed deep divisions among the galactic community. Some species wanted to welcome the humans as potential allies and teachers. Their technological achievements could solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for thousands of years. Clean energy from stellar cores could end resource conflicts. Terraforming technology could create new worlds for expanding populations. Advanced materials and construction methods could build wonders beyond imagination. But other species saw only danger in humanity's approach to problem-solving. A civilization that had fought wars killing billions of people and considered it a learning experience was not something they wanted as a neighbor. The sheer scale of human operations suggested they would inevitably consume resources and expand territories until they dominated everything around them. We must remember that they came to us, pointed out the representative from the Explorer Guild. Humans traveled 1,200 light-years from their home system to make contact with us. That suggests curiosity and peaceful intentions rather than conquest. Or it suggests they are looking for new territories to colonize, countered the delegate from the Preservation Society. 43 systems in 200 years indicates an expansion rate that will eventually encompass the entire galaxy. Admiral Taemin found himself in the strange position of defending the humans while also warning about their capabilities. I have spoken with Captain Hyun-woo extensively over the past few days. He is intelligent, reasonable, and genuinely committed to peaceful relations. But he is also a military officer who commands a vessel capable of sterilizing planets. When humans say they come in peace, they mean it. But their version of peace is backed by the most overwhelming military force any of us have ever encountered. The philosophical implications were staggering. How could peaceful coexistence work between species that had completely different definitions of what peace meant? To most galactic civilizations, peace was the absence of conflict achieved through diplomacy and compromise. To humans, peace was the presence of security achieved through superior strength. What do we know about their government structure? asked. The council speaker, Commander Wu Jin, consulted his notes. They appear to operate under a unified planetary government called the United Earth Alliance. Decision-making involves representatives from all major population centers and colony worlds. Dr. Minho mentioned that they spent considerable effort ensuring no single group could dominate the others after learning hard lessons from their historical conflicts. So they have evolved beyond their warlike past, suggested the delegate from the Harmony Singers, hopefully. Not evolved beyond it, Taemin corrected. They have learned to direct it outward rather than inward. Humans no longer fight each other because they have found common cause in expanding into space and preparing for external threats. The implications were chilling. Humans had not become more peaceful. They had simply found better targets for their aggressive tendencies, and now they were offering friendship to civilizations that had never needed to develop such capabilities. As the debate continued, it became clear that the galactic community was divided into three main factions. The welcomers wanted to embrace human technology and learn from their achievements. The isolationists wanted to avoid contact and hoped the humans would leave them alone, and the resistors wanted to find some way to contain or control human expansion before it overwhelmed everything. We cannot ignore them, Council Speaker Dawn Wing pointed out. They have demonstrated the ability to travel anywhere in the galaxy at will. If we reject their friendship, we may find ourselves facing them as enemies instead. But if we accept their friendship, we may find ourselves becoming their subjects, replied the representative from the Independent Worlds Alliance. How long before human colonies surround our worlds? How long before human technology makes our civilizations obsolete? The session continued for 12 hours without reaching any consensus. Every option seemed to lead to the same conclusion. Humans were too powerful to fight, too advanced to ignore, and too dangerous to trust completely. They offered incredible benefits, but at costs that might be too high to pay. As the representatives finally agreed to recess for further consideration, Admiral Taemin remained behind to study the tactical displays. The human ship still hung in space near his fleet like a sleeping giant. Captain Hyun-woo had been patient and accommodating throughout their extended discussions. Dr. Minho continued his cultural exchanges with obvious enthusiasm for learning about galactic civilization. But the numbers did not lie. Humans possessed technology that could reshape the galaxy, and they had already begun doing exactly that. Whether they remained friends or became enemies might depend entirely on how the next few days unfolded, and Admiral Taemin was not sure which outcome frightened him more.